All right, getting right into it with a full upper body workout using no weights calisthenics workout. Starting off with pike push-ups, elevated pike push-ups as you see, and I'm using parallettes so I can get a lot deeper range of motion at the bottom position. And you also might notice that I'm using resistance bands at my waist, right? So the purpose of the resistance bands is to basically take off weight, so instead of them resisting, they're assisting, and it makes this move a lot easier, right? With me being a bit heavier and just in general not having strong enough delts or vertical pressing movement, the resistance bands around my waist there allow for me to do more difficult variations of pike push-ups without having to. I feel like I have to forever do, the unelevated ones, right? And it allows for me to get more of a vertical pushing position rather than if I were to do them on the ground. And I think it's very beneficial when in calisthenics, right? If you're training with no weights to try and do pike push-ups because you want to have that nice shoulder strength, right? You can still build pretty good shoulder strength with just push-ups and dips, but having pike push-ups allows for more specificity, and with specificity is going to become you're going to have more better strength, and you're just going to be a bit more all around, right? So I kind of did enjoy the movement, and it was kind of similar to when I was able to do assisted handstand push-ups with resistance bands. But of course, this one is a lot less sketch because I have my feet on the ground with the pike push-ups here, and the bands are just around my waist. They're not around my shoulders whilst my feet are up in the air, right? So I'd say definitely try this out if you have the equipment to do so, because it was something I never even thought to do before in order to help with my ability to do pike push-ups more, I guess, efficiently, right? I always just kind of relied on my own specific body weight, not trying to take any weight off, and just basically trying to muscle through it, right? Which is kind of hard when you're on a bulk and you're trying to gain weight. And so movements like pike push-ups and pull-ups and dips become harder. Here I'm doing chin-ups. I just wanted to do chin-ups specifically to, I guess, recruit more biceps, get more biceps in. And I was trying to pull as high as I could. Some of the reps were chest to bar. And then at some point I just started just pulling with a bit of a rounded back. And it was just to kind of get in as much reps as I could to work, just to work things as much as possible. Here are dips. I'm supersetting movements, by the way. So the sets that I supersetted were chin-ups and pike push-ups. Now it's going to be dips and rows. Here I'm getting really deep. I'm getting really down. It's almost as if when I get down, my shoulders are meeting my hands, right? If you have the shoulder mobility to do this, without any significant pain or comfort, I'd say do it because you're going to get a lot more range of motion within your pecs and within your triceps and shoulders. A movement like dips is going to be an amazing chest builder. Whenever someone asks me like, yo, how do you build your chest? I just say push-ups and dips, and I really put an emphasis on dips because dips is just that large compound calisthenics movement that is really going to get the chest like crazy, right? It's not a tricep movement like how some people think it is. It's really more of a pectoral movement. Here I'm doing rows, ring rows, and what I'm trying to focus on is kind of squeezing at the top when I get to the top, right? Really trying to retract my shoulder blades at the top position. And then at the bottom, trying to detract my shoulder blades as much as possible so I can really get a good stretch on my lats, my traps, and my rear delts. So that way I go through a much further range of motion. And with each set, I am training as hard as I can to failure. So even when I feel like there's no more reps, I still try and go for more reps, right? Here's the second set of dips. And this is one of the hardest I've trained. I say the hardest I've trained, but since Ramadan just recently ended, the way I've trained has changed, or it's going to go back to normal per se, because I didn't want to put too much effort, especially if I was training in the middle of the day and I didn't have access to food or water until like maybe 10 hours later. But here I'm training, I'm pushing things very heavily, so I'm actually pretty sore from this workout. This workout was yesterday, and I'm making this video today, or this video goes up whenever you see it, and my pecs and triceps are quite sore from the movements I did earlier. I also do isolation movements. I do arm movements at the end of this workout which you'll see here. And again, you're like, well, how can you train your arms with calisthenics without weights? And you're gonna see. You're gonna see. You're gonna have to be pretty creative when it comes to how you kind of get things done with just your body weight within the world of calisthenics, right? Here is the second set of rows. Some people say that rows are not important or they don't really do much, but I feel like they do what pull-ups can't. And I'm not saying that rows are better than pull-ups. I feel like pull-ups are the king superior back exercise. And you can get movement, like you can get things like your rear delts and traps when you're doing pull-ups, like sternum pull-ups or just chest to bar pull-ups, things like that, arched back pull-ups. But with rows, it's going to really get kind of almost like what it missed, right? Kind of think of like doing pull-ups as like a shotgun. You kind of like spray, right, and make like a large impact. But with rows, it's almost like a sniper using a sniper rifle. You know, you're getting really down to the details and to the points and trying to get good precision, right? That's how it feels when I do rows. Rows are still a compound movement. It almost does sound like it's an isolation movement, but it allows for, I feel like, better back development. I feel like my back has benefited a lot so from making sure I do rows. So here's going to be the first isolation movement, arm movements. I'd say sort of, kind of. It's almost like a skull crusher here, right? But instead of going to my forehead, I am going to my chin or somewhere around my chin. And this did get a lot of triceps. And you want to be careful that your elbows are warmed up enough. So that's why I would say maybe do these at the end of your session or towards the end of your session. I'm using 2 parallettes kind of like stacked to each other. I was only able to do, I think it was like 4 reps here that I just counted because they're really hard. But there's some really strong guys who can do these kind of like body weight skull crushers to their actual skull, to their forehead. But I was only able to manage my chin for a couple of reps. And then here I am doing ring curls. So how can you train your biceps in isolations with just calisthenics? Ring curls. There's different ring curl variations, pelican curls, which I believe I do later. And, you know, if you don't kind of want to get more equipment, maybe you just want to stick to maybe a pull-up bar and parallel bars, you can use the parallel bar, get under it, and then you can kind of use it as a curl. I don't have an example to show because I didn't do that. But honestly, just get rings. I don't understand why not to get rings. They're a really good investment. And that's they've allowed me to build my body in these great ways that, you know, I probably would have needed to get weights for if I never had rings in general. All right, here I'm doing tricep extensions. These are a classic movement of mine. I didn't create them or anything, but this is a movement that I have done. Here you can see like this is really the end of my workout, and I'm just kind of gassed. My muscles are like they're tweaking, bro. They're screaming at me like, please stop, please. You've worked me out too much. Ah. And I'm just like, I don't care. Move. And so that's what I do, right? I move my muscles around. And I go as much as I can because that's how you promote growth, right? You have to really challenge your body and just rip the muscles apart. And guess what? They grow back bigger and stronger, bro. And it's smart to do that, especially when you're eating at a caloric surplus. When you have a caloric surplus, you know, calories are basically measures of units for energy. So you're gonna have generally more energy, especially depending on the food quality. And with more energy, you want to be able to train harder, right? You want to train a lot harder or maybe even more if that's possible. So that way you can use the surplus efficiently. You can use the surplus well, right? If I was eating at a caloric surplus and I wasn't working out or I wasn't working out as much as I should, I'd be a fatty, you know, I'd be getting more fat than I would be muscle. So be very careful not to waste your bulk by eating a lot and then just lying around, accumulating mass for no reason. But that's it. That was the last set of this workout. I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Peace out and check out my other stuff.